you have no idea what wall paneling was actually made for originally. Now in this video, I'm going to reveal exactly what it was made for. But if you do know, go down in the comments and you can win this flat. I'm joking, that would be the worst financial decision of my life. I'd be really, really shocked if any of you actually knew, because I just learned about it. So if you do know, you'll be better than me. I'm not just going to tell you, I'm going to show you. So this will be your first step, your plywood backing board, which you're going to rip down to the height that you require. You then want to make sure that you fix it really securely to your wall. The last thing you want is that board moving on the wall, because it will just create cracks when you've painted it. It'll be a terrible finish. Now I've got my top rails going on, which I ripped down earlier from 9mm ply. Now this is the bottom rail going on. Same again, 9mm ply. Now I'm just going to measure for my uprights, ready to cut them. When it comes to paneling, do not use MDF. MDF is crap. When you cut MDF down, you rip it down, it burrs up all the edges, and you can never ever sand that out. So when you come to decorate it, you're going to have a really bad edge. It's just going to look crap for the rest of the time. Plywood's a great alternative because it's very stable. You're not going to get any movements or board pulling off the wall. I see a lot of people on the internet right now going through the craze of using MDF, sticking it to a wall, pinning it into plasterboard. That's just going to fall off. You want to fix it to a bit of plywood that's already fixed to the wall, because if you don't, it's not going to last. So another reason why you don't want to be using MDF is because if you hit paneling, which you will, because paneling's normally in a place where it's going to be bumped, it's going to be knocked by people carrying stuff through, it's very, very difficult to sand, fill and repaint MDF. You'll never ever get it looking right. So in my opinion, MDF is just not a sustainable product or a good product to use. Plus it's really bad for your lungs. So this is the bottom rail going on in the hallway. And what I did was I calculated how high my skirting was going to be, and then made the top rail and the bottom rail a equal distance, if you see what I mean, so the gap looks the same. What you want with paneling is proportions. All your proportions need to be right. If they're not right, it's going to look terrible. So now you can see me just measuring my bottom rail as I fix it, just to check that my skirting's going to give me the equal gap on the top rail and the bottom. And you just want to make sure that you glue the back of these rails. So you need like a good wood glue to make it adhere to the other face of the plywood. So the reason that you want a ply back board, that 18mm that I've put on first, is not just for durability, it's actually for depth. Paneling looks really good when there's depth. When the cross-section has multiple steps, it just makes it look a lot more grand. Whereas if you just put it on a wall, straight on the plasterboard, it might look okay from the front, but when you look at an angle like this, you're not going to see all of the shadows, all of the steps, especially when it's painted, so it's going to look really flat and almost 2D. You want to go for that 3D effect. So now I'm just making sure that I fix every single upright and every single rail properly, all over the face of it. And I've actually edited out most of the fixings so it doesn't bore you guys. What I'm doing here is I'm measuring my in-between, and then I made a little packer which I've just put up there. That's basically going to allow me to put my upright rails in without having to measure every time. As long as I set my first one in level, the rest will be okay. Once again, just making sure I fix it properly. Guys, if you're liking this video, do me a solid, hit the subscribe button. But to be fair, if you guys have got an unlimited budget, I wouldn't do it in ply. I'd do it in a softwood or a hardwood even. But you're going to be adding a huge amount of costs on materials and also labour, because all of them have got to be machined down to size, whereas plywood, you can just buy it off the shelf in the thickness that you require. It's fairly straightforward now. You just want to get into a bit of a rhythm, put that packer in, put your upright in, fix it at the top. Move your packer back down. And then give it a little fix in the bottom. So the main thing with panelling is you need to incorporate it into the overall design. Lines need to line through. So take a look around, have a look at what you're doing with the rest of the property, see if you've got any lines on your doors or other walls, and just try and tie it in. Obviously there's a limit to where you want to go with your panelling in terms of the height, because if you go way too high it's going to look silly. So a good sort of rule of thumb would be below your door handles on your door, or at least sort of somewhere near in line with that. Now, I had to go a little bit higher with my panelling because I wanted the dado rail to follow round through the kitchen, through the front room, so that every single room there's a line which is at the exact same height, set with a laser level. It just adds a little bit of continuation through the property. You might not realise it when you go in, but you will probably subconsciously see it. So yeah, we're coming to the end of the rails now. So the next step's going to be the moulding that goes on top. So now I'm just cutting the moulding that goes on top of the panelling, which closes it off in between the plaster and the wood. The reason for it is it just looks way better. You don't want to leave it really just a square like that. It's depth again. My mouldings match my skirtings because we made them bespoke, so you guys don't have to do that. You could just put a square top that sticks out on top, or some other profile that you maybe router on. Now I'm just scribing the wall because the wall's not bang on straight. So that's a little scribe tool that I've got, and then I'll cut the line off, which means that when I put it back on the wall, it's going to be a perfect fit. There's going to be no gaps. Just aids you when you come to decorate. You don't have to fill, you don't have to do other bits. We're now onto our top coat. This is a eggshell finish from Dulux Heritage. So you can see I'm just rolling it on, and then I'm striking it off with my brush. You don't want to leave the roller marks on. Painting's quite a tedious job. A lot of people don't like it, but once you get into the rhythm, it's quite nice. It's quite nice to keep yourself occupied with some music or a podcast. So the trouble is with painting panelling, there's a lot of corners and edges. The last thing you want to do is keep the excess paint on the corners. So decorators call it striking off, which means they run back over with their brush along the edges and take off all the drips. You also want to make sure that you get right into those corners and not leave paint exposed on the outside. I've also caulked all of the internal corners and the parts where the mouldings meet. Just cutting in now along the top edge, which is probably the easiest part, which is funny because all of the walls and the woodwork are the same colour. Rollering in all of the internal panels just gets the paint on way quicker, and then just striking it back off with the brush. Lay it on with a roller, strike it off with the brush. Another thing to keep in mind when you're finishing your panelling with the decoration, you want to make sure that you're using the correct tools. Now, a lot of people just like to use a roller and roll it on, and that's okay to get the paint on the material, but actually leaving it as a finish is a terrible finish. It looks absolutely crap. What you'll find is you'll see the wood grain start to come through the roller, and it's like a stippled finish. Rollers are meant for plastered walls, not for wood panels or anything wood really. The best finish you could get is to spray finish it, but the second best is brush finish, because what I can do is I can mimic the grain. So the way that I do it is I could lay it on with a roller, but then as long as I brush the way of the grain, I'm going to be fine. But if I leave it, it's going to look rubbish. So at the start of this video, I said to you guys that I'd show you exactly why they invented panelling, and I kind of have. What I've done is I've shown you exactly how to fit panelling, but now I'm going to tell you exactly why they invented it. And it's not for the reason you probably think, and that could be aesthetics. So the reason that they actually fitted the panelling was to keep damp out. So it was to stop rising damp. Back in the day, when it was lava and plaster walls, it would take nothing for damp to get sucked up into that. It was really dry. So what they'd use is this wood panelling to put it straight on the wall, and obviously it's going to take a lot more for damp to penetrate through wood than it would lava and plaster. Thanks for watching. Make sure to go down there and subscribe.